Hello and welcome to Business Class. My name is Shantanu Prakash, and today we have an interesting entrepreneur. His name is Akash Gupta. Akash is the co-founder and CEO of Zypp. That's written as ZYPP. Zypp is India's first dockless electric scooter sharing app. Certainly a very unique and novel idea. And for all of us who've got off from a metro, wondering what transportation to take for our last mile requirement, this seems to be a godsend. Well, Akash, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
And certainly a very pioneering effort. But this space has been, this whole space of mobility and electric vehicles, of course, the poster child of that is Elon Musk, right? And go green. This has been a fairly hot space.
It is.
So how have your thoughts about some of these things got shaped up in your own corporate journey? You've been with Airtel, you've been with Dell, you've been with MobiKwik.
Yes.
And so sort of tell us how the idea germinated in your mind and how did you start this company?
Well, interesting question now. So that takes me back about 6 to 7 years, So I've worked 10 years in a corporate world, started with Dell and, as you rightly mentioned. But this thought of doing a startup, solving a big problem for millions or billions of people, this germinated when I was in Airtel. I was, 2 years into Airtel out of the 5 years. And then someone asked me that what are those 100 things that you want from life, right? And then I was a little clueless. I said that I'm working and I'll continue to grow. Airtel, I'm a good performer. But then he forced me that why don't you write down what you want from life? One of the things that emerged out of, and one of the first things that I wanted to do was to do a startup. Right, that's I think ingrained in your DNA. When you grow up, you see businesses, you see successes, and then when the startup thought was always there in the mind, I was looking for a large problem to solve, which I also face as a problem, and so many other people also. And when I was researching about a lot of things that I could solve, I would have done a few more projects before leading to Zypp to see that whether this is for me, whether it's a large problem to solve, and through that journey, mobility emerged out as one of the things that touches people every day, right? Mobility will not be stopped, right? You will have to commute from one place to another. So in that, I saw this problem of last mile commute to be a painful one because we are in Delhi. Delhi Metro is amazing, in terms of the way that's connected. But then the last 2-3 kilometers always was a pain. I talked to a lot of people, interviewed a lot of people at metro stations, at colleges, at companies. They all said, yes, it's if you provide us something, we would like to use it up. And that's how the journey began.
So I believe that right now you have almost 1,000 electric scooters on the road and over 300,000 people have used your scooters. So if you were to take a pit stop and do a dipstick analysis, so far happy, successful?
Well, you're never successful till you've achieved, your goal or your ambition in that sense. And startups, while I would be, since a lot of young people would also be watching, while it looks flashy from the outside, we are always hustling for the next right thing to do in business, to set up the right processes, to set up the right ops. But yes, so far I would say whatever said and done, we've been able to reach in the last 2.5 years to a milestone that we wanted to. And now the next big milestone is what I'm hunting for, and the tryst is on. So far there have been days which have rewarded us well, but yes, we've learned a lot.
So as an individual in this entire journey, you would have changed and grown yourself.
Big time.
From the time you press the button that I want to do a startup. And I can fully understand when you conceptualize a startup, when that question was first posed to you in Airtel, it's a romantic notion that you want to be in control of your life, you want to change the world, and here you are. So was that romantic notion of what it means to be an entrepreneur matching with the reality of what it means to be an entrepreneur? Or do you see some disconnects now?
No, it really, I would say it supersedes that thought, to be very frank. While it was a notion that yes, I'll be an entrepreneur and I'll be in control of my life. But at the end of the day, when you start up, then you realize that it comes with a lot of responsibility. It comes with empowering so many people who are working for you and with you on the same mission.
And now the buck stops with you as the boss.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, if things are not working fine, I am part of that, reason. Now you cannot blame or you cannot sit around the coffee table. This thing is not working out. I have to get into the mud and solve it together with the team.
So you come from a family of doctors. I think your father is a doctor, and you were born and brought up in Jaipur.
That's right.
And usually we feel that people who are not from the bad city like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai,
Yeah.
they have different sort of life values.
Yeah.
So when you came here and now you're running a business in the city, what are the areas you feel that your past experience has helped you? And what are those areas where you feel that you still have to learn a lot and everyday life surprises you?
Well, I think one of the things that has worked well in terms of the learning curve were the value system that I inculcated during my corporate career, right? So how to work, how to make things work, how to work with a team, how to lead. Those are things that are ingrained, which could shine well since I was building my own thing. But at the same time, I think in terms of learning curve, the right set of team building, the right set of experiments to be done, the right set of processes to be drawn out, so that it's a repetitive and iterative exercise of success and the right customer experience to be given. Those are the things that I'm learning and we are working on together. And yes, finance has been one of the things that I am less I don't like that as a thing to work on. But yes, as business, that teaches you quite a lot. Unless you do that well, how will you run 100, 500 1,000 crore company, which is what we are on now. Yeah.
So, Akash, when I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, there are two kinds. One is people like you who think that they want to be entrepreneurs. Then they go about choosing a problem to solve. It's not as if you have a background in either EV tech or in mobility. You just think this was a big enough problem. Somebody put money behind you, looking at your profile, and maybe you exuded that confidence, and here you are. The other set of people are those who have deep domain expertise.
Yeah.
For example, doctors who set up clinics, or people who are, have been professionally trained for a certain job, and they decide, for example, I recently interviewed the founder of Massive Foods, Zoravar. He's in that line. He has that domain expertise. So when you do something, because you feel it's a big problem to solve, don't you think that you're learning on the job at somebody else's expense?
So see, one of the things that entrepreneurs do is they have a very deep dive, ingrained, inherent, ability to solve problems and relentlessly go for it. Right? That is what is needed to build a right business, I would say. Domain expertise is hardly a game changer in some of these tech oriented businesses. While I'll give you a few examples, right? So Apple is the giant in front of us, and Apple started with something called as a Mac, and it was a derived while they were competing with Windows at one point in time, and today they stand for their phones, right? Paytm, which is a huge success story in the Indian startup ecosystem. They were into, Vijay Shekhar sir was into selling vases, right? Hello Tunes and stuff. And today they are a digital fintech platform, right? So that is, I think, learning on the job is not a bad thing to do, unless you have that relentless drive to execute and to ensure that you can pivot, you can learn that when to fail. The problem with being hugely good on domain expertise is also that you would never leave that as a field, even if it's not working. The beauty of doing something, you're focused on solving the problem rather than thinking that this is the only solution for it.
So you're saying that what you bring to the table is the ability to solve problems.
Yes.
And if it wasn't mobility, you could as well be solving some other problem. And also that today you're in mobility, but who knows what this company might transform into, the way Apple transformed and the way Paytm transformed. Fair enough. I think that's an answer. That's a way that you're looking at life and at business. So when you look back at your career, in preparation to launch this, how do you feel and what are the life skills? You mentioned problem solving. I suppose you'll talk about critical thinking, talk about collaboration. These are what we call 21st century skills,
Yes.
or skills that you need to succeed.
Yes.
So, what are those skills and how did you actually end up acquiring them? Was it a conscious effort?
So see, if you look at the career graph of mine, right? So when I did my MBA in IT and marketing, I was in an IT company doing the business analysis and like a typical business development role. But then that could teach me some of the ways how to run a corporate, being in Dell, a big MNC. Then coming to Airtel from there, because I wanted more action and more learning on the job, I came to Airtel where life was much faster. You could do things and see the results of them within a month or so after strategizing, and you could drive people. So I was heading acquisitions for 4G nationally, and there I could handle a team. I could grow the business. I could run the P&L. Those are the things that I learned, in Airtel, along with the marketing skills that I acquired, building the acquisition strategy. Then when I went to Snapdeal, which was a small stint, but again a great learning experience into a pure startup, which was young, which was bubbling with energy. You're doing things today, and you're seeing the results there, and there I learned a lot more into collaborations, a lot more on how to build the team ground up, and drive the numbers. So that's where I could see numbers more clearly, because digital marketing is all about numbers. From Snapdeal, when I went to MobiKwik, it was a holistic experience of actually running a startup, because the beauty was the working with founders and then setting everything. So everything I can say that that everything that happened for those 2 years that I spent in MobiKwik was mostly driven by me. So it was as if I was doing my own startup, which is the beauty of working in a startup, and acquiring all these skills and collaborating well, and partnering, executing things. I could say that I was ready to and having some savings that I could invest to kick off my own venture.
So you put your own money in this?
Absolutely. I had my own money, and
And I believe your wife is the co-founder.
yes,
So as a family, you're all in.
we're all in.
Fantastic.
If you ask me, I mean, leaving all our seven or eight figure salaries and getting down to do this, we have everything on stake to make this successful.
So clearly, you're bringing some best practices into what you're doing here in your own startup. But what are the things that you are very clear that you will not do in terms of organizational practice to keep the fire of the company alive? Because every company starts as a startup and then becomes this big bureaucratic mammoth elephant. So, what is your vision of how do you keep that energy and that agility alive in the company?
Well, we were trying to create a culture of our own startup, right? And for that, we have a 10 rule DNA actually, and that's a very ingrained feature that
Do you
we try
remember
to
all
build.
the 10 rules?
Well, I do. I penned them down myself.
Okay,
So
let's
yeah.
hear them.
Yeah. So one of them is the entrepreneurial, thought of yours. One of them, which is very important, is think of a solution before suggesting a problem, right? So solutions comes before citing a problem. The third thing of those is have your probation period to be a real stone to prove yourself. That's very important. That
In
that
a way,
we
your
feel.
entire career was like a probation for your startup.
I agree with you, and that's where you prove your mettle and grow up the ladder. Open door policy, very important in our kind of a culture.
Broadly speaking.
Yeah. Broadly speaking, it's also about how optimism, one of the very important key for the business, right? Because unless you are not optimistic, you will never be able to see that big, dream that you wish to achieve of moving billions of people on your platform, right? So these are the core tenets, I would say, that we follow in our company. Frugality is also another key thing that we reward people on. That there was a way to do things, but if you're able to save some money, that's how you're doing the right thing for the business.
So how do you manage to create a convergence between this wonderful, beautiful, optimistic company you want to be, while your investors are really asking you real business questions? Where's the cash flow? How many scooters? How many rides? So how do you create a convergence between what your investors are asking
Yeah.
and these, nice sounding motherhood statements for employees?
Yeah, so I agree with you that business cannot run without the right KPIs, which is why, some things that we follow. So while I told you that these are the tenets that we follow before hiring a person, but after you are ingrained into the system, what's important is that each and every one of our team has a KRA to follow. So we have KRAs for the ops team, we have KRAs for the BD team, and then there's a variable that we kind of follow for such roles, which is important. And then you overachieve that variable, you take 2x take home. But if you're not able to achieve, then also there's a rider, which is the policy, as per the policy. So there are KPIs and there are tenets. They go hand in hand, and that's how you build a large.
So what do you think are the challenges going forward? You're doing something which is very innovative. Probably nobody in India has done it before. So as you go along, you're sort of building the highway on which you're riding, right? So what are the challenges that you've already faced, and what are the ones that you're seeing coming at you in the future?
So there have been a lot of challenges because EVs is such a new and such an important domain. There's governments which is who's pushing EVs. There are a lot of things that are happening to grow that in the company in the country. And at the same time, since we are doing this for the first time, shared electric mobility, right? We've solved problems like insurance on these scooters, which were not existing. We've solved problem of leasing these scooters because we wanted to be asset light. How to lease these scooters out? We created a new platform just for that. Asking our users to invest into scooters and then pay them a fixed rental. Then solving the entire product, IoT technology. These things are the ones that I would say that over the last 2.5 years we've solved. But at the same time, the next big thing which is going to be really interesting to solve is the scale of it. So going from 1,000 scooters to 100,000 scooters, you can imagine the scale. Going from 4 cities to 20 cities, that's really going to be the real holy grail for us to solve and then build this bigger.
So most startups today, while they grow, their losses grow as well. So as an entrepreneur, is it your goal to create a sustainable, profitable business, or do you believe that growth at any cost?
No, actually, we are at our DNA is such that we've in very limited monies, I would say 1/10 of the capital that any other company would have raised in this, domain, nationally or internationally, we've been able to show success with that, right? And that's the core ethos of having a 10-year experience into a lot of other companies to learn how to calibrate this well. So we've have those, and that's another one of the DNAs that we follow to do things in the right shape. So I would say that we are fairly to the T in terms of our metrics on operational profitabilities. We make at least 80% of our scooters are profitable today, and that's the way that we would want to grow this business. We have a B2C and a B2B mixed model strategy, which hedges the bets on a lot of risk which B2C businesses involve, of crazy capital going into just creating user base. We are rather focused on balancing the two out, where 50% comes from B2C, 50% comes from B2B, and that's how you're able to, in less capital, do more. Right? So that's how my thought process works, that we would want to build a business which is profitable sooner and then become a unicorn, rather than chasing the unicorn dream, which is a pack of cards.
Is that a dream?
That is definitely one of them.
So what is the, I see a lot of entrepreneurs are very obsessed with valuation. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your own thoughts on that. Why is it important for the company to be a unicorn? If you were not unicorn, but you still managed to solve the mobility problem, would you still be happy?
I would say yes, I would be happy. At the same time, if I'm able to create it larger and grow that bigger, not just within India and outside the geographies, and that all will happen if I'm doing the business right? So that goes without saying that I will build the business right, but I would want to capture masses. I would want to give it to the billions rather than just stay with millions, is what I would be most excited about. So Shantanu, I've seen a couple of your interviews and pretty good stuff in them. One of the things that I read and I got to know that you've also been an entrepreneur yourself. Would love to know about your own journey, how it has been, and is it part of that entrepreneurial journey or this is something else?
Well, Akash, interesting question. And I've been an education entrepreneur. I'm still an education entrepreneur. And once you spend, enough time on the job of being an entrepreneur, there are certain things that you realize. So whether it's insights about what works, what doesn't work, and I see that today we've entered an age where everybody wants to do a new startup. It's the romantic thing to do. It's the aspirational thing to do. When I started my journey in life as an entrepreneur, the ecosystem was very different from what it is now. The amount of funding that's available now, the amount of private equity or venture capital money, the entire angel investor ecosystem was non-existent. In fact, I think even the word startup wasn't invented or coined. And I think from one era to the next, I think what can be transported is probably not business models, is probably not capital raising models, but what can be transported is insights. Because business skills remain the same, whether it is the era of Rockefeller or Dhirubhai Ambani to Elon Musk and to Akash Gupta from Zypp, right? And I thought that through this series, we can bring some of those stories out to the people so that they can watch this and they can feel that if Akash can do it, so can they. But what are the right steps they need to take to be able to do that? But you can do an MBA, but there is no school for entrepreneurship. That is something we have to learn in the school of life.
That's true. Well, great thoughts on that.
Thank you
Good
so
luck
much,
to you.
Akash. Akash Gupta, the co-founder of Zypp, is a man with a mission. He, as he describes himself, really thought very carefully before starting his business as to which big problem he should solve. And he decided that last mile mobility was the big thing that he wanted to attack. So he went about that as a man on a mission, made sure that he went and gathered relevant experience in a whole bunch of companies, doing short stints, figuring out the kind of skills he needs because he knew in his mind that he is one day going to become an entrepreneur. Akash's model of entrepreneurship is one that relies on knowledge, on skills, and a large vision of the world that has been granted to him by his stint in corporate India. And what is interesting is that the kind of problems this breed of entrepreneurs are trying to solve are not the traditional problems. These are also new age problems that are taking India forward. Like for Zypp, it's last mile mobility. To trust an entrepreneur, a new age entrepreneur like Akash, to solve a new age problem.